I live off the grid in Las Vegas, and I've been off the grid for 13 years, designed my own system, built it from scratch. So have been following this technology for over a decade, living off it every day, not designing it, living off it, helping neighbors. So I got dragged into the industry to test the equipment for them, especially for the fire service. So I've had a say in the development of a lot of technologies out there, and what's happening right now, we need to know in the fire service. Because I kind of use the analogy when lightweight construction came in, and we went from dimensional lumber, we started killing firefighters. Now, lightweight construction is a $1 billion industry. They looked at this and said it's structurally, it's safe. It meets all the parameters for building, it's cheap. But it's killing firefighters. We don't give a fuck. It's the $1 billion industry. It took how long before they said a 2-minute impingement will collapse a floor? How long did it take? How many deaths did it take to get to that point? It took a while. With this, industry's changing. How we look at electricity is going to change right in front of our eyes. I'm just trying to get in front of the curve to give you the information so you'll be able to deal with it. It's not like we can't deal with it. I'm just going to get the information out to you. Okay? That's what this is all about. So I created SAFE as an educational platform, solar and fire education. The industry that I'm working with to test all this stuff is sponsoring this. Because I said, we got to get this out to departments. They don't have the money to pay for instruction. I think it's upon you to sponsor something like this. So I approached Sunrun, the CEO, and she said, we'll go for it. This is important. Her grandfather was a Navy SEAL. She kind of gets what we're doing, what we do out there. They've sponsored this. So basically the mission, there's 2 points to the mission. Number 1 is protect you, and number 2 is protect your family. And in California, that's going to be huge for you. Okay, so what are we going to cover in this class? So we're going to cover residential solar and how it's going to look and what you're going to run into, the industry standards, what they're doing to safeguard it. We'll look at basically suppression tactics. So you're going to be able to pull up on a working fire, give a BIR, come up with an incident action plan and a strategy and tactic to deal with it, instead of sitting in the cab going, shit, what the hell do we do with this? Because the information hasn't got out to us. We'll look at the risks. Controlling utilities has completely changed for us. That is something that's going to be completely new, and it's no longer sending the rookie to the 100-year-old electrical connection. It's just not going to happen. And as I said, just resolving the problem. You'll have the tools to make an informed decision. Okay? So, why am I doing this? Basically, the industry's exploding. If you drive around, you start seeing solar panels everywhere. In Vegas, it's the electrical company tried to shut the solar industry down, but they failed, and now it's exploding everywhere. In California, there's going to be a massive growth in storage because the power companies charge people so much money for electricity, and they know when you use it, and that's when they bump the prices. So you're going to see residential people everywhere investing in solar because it's going to be cheaper. So we're going to run into it. When I did hazmat years ago, like the hazmat classes, when hazmat was the thing in the 80s and 90s, you did a class and it was really good instruction, but you go, shit, I ain't never going to use that. Maybe once, right? This is going to be a day-to-day bread and butter occurrence for us. That's the difference. Is you're going to see this. You might see it today, you might see it tomorrow. You're going to see this. In hazmat, you usually say, you hope you can go through your whole career and not see it, right? This, you're going to see it. You're going to run into it, okay? So, let's start with just basic electricity. We've taught as rookies to respect grid electricity, and I'm going to talk about the difference between grid and solar electricity. But basically the concept of electricity is the same whether you're looking at the grid or you're looking at solar. you basically got energy stored, right? And I use a water tower as an example. You guys are familiar with water towers. If that thing's full, the head pressure at the bottom of that water tower is really, really strong. Basically with voltage, same thing. The higher the voltage, the more power there is to get through the resistance, to get through your turnout gloves and everything else, okay? So the potential of that power, just think of a water tower. If it's full, you've got major head pressure. The current is just the water flowing through the pipe. Same thing. That water is trying to find a way out of that tower. If you connect a pipe to that tower, it's coming. If you become the ground in a circuit, you just become the pipe. Basically, this class, don't be the pipe, guys. That's basically it. Okay, so let's just talk about the basics of solar equipment right now. I've been teaching in California a lot, and you guys are a lot more in tune with solar because I think you've seen it more than other places. Vegas is booming, but the guys really didn't have that much education in solar. So we start with solar panels, okay? So basically a solar panel is about the size of this table, a little bit wider. It's usually about 37 volts. It's got an aluminum frame around it. How you build voltage for the solar panel is you take one panel and you connect it to another panel and you connect it to another panel. That's called series, okay? And that's how you build voltage. So if you put a little bit of math, I'm going to ask the captain because he's falling asleep. If you have 10 of those 37 volt panels put together, how many volts do you have, Cap? You're doing a size up.
3,700. 370, right?
Okay, good. So you can look on roofs, right, and kind of get a guesstimate. Now they can build them up to 600 volts. Is 600 volts a lot of voltage in our world? Yeah, it's a fair amount. But the amperage is, for a panel, it's about 8 to 9 to 12 amps. The amperage stays the same. You see what I'm saying? So you may have a lot of panels connected, but the amperage stays the same, okay? So after you build those panels out on a roof, that's DC power. It's got to go somewhere, right? So it goes from the DC power in the panels, it goes through an inverter. And that inverter takes that DC power, converts it to AC power, and goes and runs your house. Runs your air conditioner, runs your refrigerator, fans, whatever, right? So you're taking DC power, goes through an inverter. It's got to go through that to AC, and then it runs the house. And the third part of the component is your electrical panel. So right now, as we see it, most in your area right now, you'll have panels on a roof producing DC power, right? It goes through the inverter, and then it's connected to the electrical panel that runs your home. So what's going to change for us is, okay, you got the panels going through the inverter, running your home. If that, let's see if my, they don't work on these screens. If this goes down, your utility goes down, and you've just spent 30 grand on panels, and you're like, shit, I don't have a power bill, right? I'm good. If that grid goes down, you're producing, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're producing all sorts of power. Do you run your home? Is your home going to run on your panels?
No.
No?
It depends how you're hooked up.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. Okay. Is the house going to run off your panels? Because it's got to go to that inverter. The thing is, why the change is what we're going to see is, as soon as the grid goes down, you can spend all that money on solar. And see, that's a lot of people made the mistake that they thought, oh, I've got solar, I can run my home, right? Yeah.
Well, it depends. No, I mean, if you're hooked up to where you're back feeding the grid, then you're feeding the grid. But if you're totally off grid,
If you're completely off grid, yes.
then you're running off solar panels. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Like my house.
Right.
I'm not connected to the grid, so the grid could blow up. I'm within 50 miles. I'm not even 50 miles of the grid, right? So yes, you're correct in that sense. But in the residential California area, most people are connected to the grid, right?
Right.
So when the grid goes down, you have no power. You have zero power. So you have all that power being produced, but all that equipment, the inverter, has to have a signal from the grid. So again, you have $20,000, $30,000 worth of power on your roof. You can't use it. Where the game changer is we're going to be going to this. And I've got a mock-up out there, but you're going to see lithium ion battery storage. So this is how the game changes once you have this. So basically they're a storage, and when the grid goes down, what happens is the storage takes over. So basically the house looks at, okay, I've got a grid outage. I'm now going to start using battery. You won't even know in your home that you've gone to battery storage. And the solar panels are going to feed the battery during the day, run the home, and then at night you're going to operate off the battery, and then the next morning when the battery runs down, the solar panels are going to charge the battery and run the home. The grid's down. The grid's gone. You're not going to see it. So controlling utilities at this point has completely changed. Because guess what? We've done for 100 years. We've gone to that electrical panel, right? And we shut the electrical panel coming in from the grid. What's just happened on a house with storage?
Just kicking the battery back.
It's gone, oh shit, the grid's down, right? Let's go for it. Let's turn on the system. You just energized the house. So, do you make a report? Command, utilities are secure? No, a gas valve is a gas valve. That's not going to change for us. Water valve's a water valve. As soon as we do this, we've been doing it for over 100 years, we're just energizing a home. Now, the question is, where is this battery? Where can it be stored? And how do we isolate it, right? So, these batteries store a certain amount of voltage. So, the LG battery, which I have outside, which Sunrun uses, and they're the biggest residential solar company, so you're going to see that battery a lot. It's 400 volts DC, and the AC side of it is for Tesla. They put out 240 volts. So it's pretty high voltage. Look at the amperages, pretty low. 12.5, 21. So very, very low amperage. Now, they've got stored energy, 9.8 kilowatt hours of stored energy is a lot of energy. But I'm going to show you the breakdown of that, because I'm going to get rid of the myth of, taking out a city block because one of these things explodes. It's just, that's not going to happen. So we'll talk about that. So let's go. This is what the industry used to look like. Where I live, this was what people had for a setup. This is a nightmare. There's no doubt about it. This is a freaking hazmat incident. This is acid. This is unstable. This is bad. So if this is what we were facing, I would have to be a hazmat instructor. But we've gone from that to the lithium ion battery, and it's a lot easier to deal with. You're not going to see this in your lifetime. You may see it. I could bet my paycheck that you're not going to see that. Up where I live, you may see it once in a while, but this is not what you're going to see. So that's where it's changed. So let's talk about the lithium ion battery. Okay, I got some examples here of what these suckers are. So those batteries that store all that power that back those homes up, they basically are these things. Hundreds of these things. Now they're about 3.7, let's say 4 volts to make the math easy each. So this is what they look like. This is all they are. Pass it down. Okay? So let's do a little bit more math. Cat woke up, so I'm not going to ask him. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Okay. 400 volts. And, okay, let's say they're 4 volts each, right? How many of those suckers are in that LG?
100.
All right. Okay. So there's 100 of those joined together to make 400 volts at about 12.5 amps. So when you picture those batteries, picture those cells crammed into a metal case. Okay? And they're all interconnected. So they're high performance. When you cram all those batteries in there, it's about 250 pounds. So it's pretty heavy. So if the thing falls off the wall and lands on your toe, it's going to hurt. If it falls and lands on you, it's going to hurt. They're mounted on the ground, so they're fairly heavy. They can be indoor or outdoor. So this is the important about the utility, is we're used to having the electrical box outside, right? The main is always outside. I teach all over the country, it seems like the main's outside, right? So when you make control utilities, you can be on the outside of the house to do it right, by code. Okay, that's gonna change because that's gonna stay on the outside. But guess where the batteries can be? They can be on the inside. They can be either outside or inside. The only place, if they're not on the outside, the only place they can be is, where do you think, those batteries?
Garage.
Garage, right? So in the garage. So you're looking at now, visually, you don't know whether there's batteries or not. So on fires, think about this. Go find the utility shaft. Walk around the house, you go, yeah, there it is, shut it down. You pull up on a working fire now, structure fire, you see panels on the roof, but you see the mains, but there's no other equipment on the side of the house. You look down the side of the house and go, well, where the hell's everything else? It's going to be in the garage. Have we ever made entry into the garage on a working fire to shut down utilities? Not really. No. So now we've got to think, you've got to make entry in there. Number two is it safe to make entry into that garage, and how do you get into the garage if you've got a working fire in a house? Because you can't, if the lads have made entry into the house and start working this fire, and they're checking for extension and everything, they're pulling ceiling, right? Well, you've shut down the mains. What have you done? You just activated the house under that battery. So you've got to get in there before you control utilities. So the decision making there is, how do we open the garage up if we can't make entry into the house because you've got a line going into the house? So you got to think about, we're going to have to cut that door. We're going to have to get in to control electrical utilities. We're going to have to make entry into that garage if it's in there and shut that down. Okay? So, controlling utilities. Let's talk about that. This is where having that prop in the room really helps, guys. It really does. So, basically, I'm going to go out and go through the controlling the utilities out there on the prop that we built. But the idea is, you've got to look for that inverter. So you've got energy coming from the roof. Once you shut down that inverter that changes that DC to AC power, you've start isolating that power going into the house and going to that battery. The problem is the roof still live? If you shut down the inverter that's in line, is the roof still live? Is the panel still producing? Yeah. So that power source, you've got to respect that it's a bit like a weatherhead on a house. When we shut down utility, the power company deals with the weatherhead. We don't say, hey, we're going to deal with that. We just know it's live, and we tell the young guys, don't touch that. Don't stick your tongue on it, right? You just leave it alone. Don't even. It's the same with this. We've got to respect there's energy coming in from the panels at that inverter. So we shut that inverter down. Now we've got to read conduit for the roof ops, because if you're doing aggressive ventilation, like we do in Vegas, if you've got conduit running from those panels to those inverters, and it can be up to a potential 600 volts, you got to think, can you see the conduit? So the first thing I'm teaching is look for that conduit on the outside of the house that runs to the panels. Tell the command, tell ventilation, hey, I can see the conduits running on the Bravo side up to the panels. Because if they want to cut the roof, they know there isn't conduit buried in the roof. Now, if you don't see that conduit, which a lot of times now is getting hidden in the attic or in the actual wall, do you want to drop a saw in a roof? You're not messing with the panels. I'm going to teach you, don't mess with the panels. You pick another spot to vent, right? And the truck companies have a big problem in Vegas with this. But I'll explain why. If you're dropping your saw in the area where you're going to cut, you got a potential of 600 volts, and you cut through that trunk line going to the inverter. Do you think it'd be a problem? Oh yeah. So you've got to identify where that conduit is. So that's number one. Start reading conduit. Start communicating that. Because if you can't, you don't want to drop that saw. You're going to have to find another place to cut. Or you say, hey, we can't find a conduit. We're not going to go vertical on this one. We're going to go horizontal. The good thing is I'm going to talk about residential. We've got many, many different tools outside of the horizontal cut, right? We can use other means. So that's the first thing. Start reading that conduit. So we shut down the inverter. At that point, you've got to feed into the battery. What happens is people take that battery, especially if it's a DC battery, and they have some DC plugs. They wire it themselves into some DC outlets too. So shutting down the inverter should shut everything down, but you're not sure. So you've got to look for the disconnect between the batteries. So you've got to look for the disconnect, and you've got to look for the breakers, because that battery runs a certain circuit. So when you put a battery in your home, like if Cat if Cat puts a battery in his home with solar, he's going to sit there and he's going to go, okay, you sit with your wife and go, what do you want backed up? When I'm at work, shit hits the fan, hon, what do you want backed up? And she's going to go, I want a refrigerator backed up, I want fans. AC's out of question. There's just the technology for AC is going to drain your battery. But you got fans. I want the TV to work. I want to be able to plug in my cell phone to call you at work and tell you this is horrible, right? I want, so you start picking what you want backed up. Well, when you have a battery in the system, that backs up those panels, okay? So you pick. So basically, you've got to find that panel, because you can go to the main panel, shut off all your breakers, shut off your main connection, so the AC flow going into the house, yes, it's stopped. But you've got to go find that breaker panel and shut off all those breakers and the DC disconnects feeding into the main. So again, the tool I've got out there is really important for that. So I'm going to fly through this, and then we're going to go talk, because this is not working without that. So it's really important to understand that flow. So let's talk about firefighting. I can talk about this. So we're going to talk a little bit more about basically the disconnection and making it safe for the firefighters. What the hell do you do when this thing's on fire? Okay, you got a working fire. You pull up today and you see batteries. You're like, hey, Captain Bud told me, damn, there's batteries. What do? What would you do on a working fire? Like that, the battery's not on fire. 99% of the time the house is going to catch on fire. And it's going to involve the batteries on the side of the house, whether in the garage or outside. What do? What would you do today?
Put it out.
Put it out. Right, how would you put it out?
Until, if I didn't see it right off the bat, or if I was unsure.
No, you saw it.
I got a hose line, I'm putting it out. I'm putting
Okay.
the whole house out.
I gotta think
And
most
if I'm-
people are gonna do bursts of water. So
Okay,
like we were
bursts of
always
water. Okay, so this is where, and some guys read it right away. I didn't have that slide up before. I used to have, what do you do without the slide? And I had a crusty old captain from Vegas say, I'm going to call Public Works. This is when I first teaching this. And I'm like, okay, Public Works, what are you going to do with Public Works? He goes, I'm going to get a dump truck full of sand. And I'm going to back it up and put sand on it. It was a great idea. I mean, back in the 80s, I think in Vegas, that was the thing to do, right? What we can do, thankfully, we have the equipment. This is the great thing about this, is the testing we've done. We have the equipment to do due diligence, put the damn fire out. What I'm saying though is, you've got to realize it's still a battery, it's stored energy. But if you can isolate that battery down to a picture, you know how you try and get the rookie to picture when there's a couch on fire and a chair and some curtains on fire? You try and get him to think there's a couch on fire, there's a chair, and there's this many BTUs, and GPMs will put out the BTUs. But those kids are thinking there's a dragon in there with big wings and fangs and blowing fire out. That's what they're thinking. It's the same with this. When you pull up, think of it, it's 100 of these little cells. They're connected. There's very low amperage. There's some stored energy in there. But is it the same as the grid? Is it the same as the grid? I had the other night, I had a weatherhead come down, and it was melting the blacktop, someone's yard. Pull up. I said to the guys, just stay in the rig. Don't even get out of the rig. Dispatch me NV Energy. We got a line down this live. Get out of the rig, tell the neighbor, and they're all coming out because you can watch the lights go out. As this thing's dumping into this line and bouncing around, I'm watching it. I'm waiting for the transformer to go, one of the transformers. NV Energy gets up there, pulls up his truck. He's got these really nice bolt cutters in this big sleeve, pulls them out, puts these really expensive gloves on, goes up in his little bucket, cuts the line, and we're like, holy shit, I wouldn't do that, right? Like, set up on him. So, and he's doing it every day, like, this is no big deal. And I said to him, okay, I said, why is that melting the goddamn blacktop? He goes, all that line sees, all the grid sees, is everybody's turned their microwave, toaster, AC on at the same time. It needs a load. Dumps the load down that line. He says it stops when the load gets so big that one of the transformers blows. I'm like, he goes, but that's not the boogeyman. I said, what's that residential line? He says, 2,000 volts. He goes, that's not the boogeyman. He said, the boogeyman is the 100 volt line that's feeding that 2,000 volt line that feeds the weatherhead. And it's just dumping voltage and amperage into that line. I said, is that why if you sprayed water on that kill you? He goes, sure. He said, 1 3/4. Let's say we're flowing 100 gallons per minute. You hit one of those transformers. Well, has that got enough juice to travel down that? Yeah. Do you think if you isolate the power down to that battery, those 100 cells sitting in there, that are basically, they're a battery. They're starting to short out anyway, right? The connections are going to get destroyed. It's a thermal event. Do you think there's enough juice to travel down an 1 3/4 line, standing at a good distance with a straight string, wearing an SCBA? Do you think there's enough power to travel down that line and bite us in the ass? No, right? That's the difference. That's the difference. That's the true difference. So, when we go on a working fire and we see this stuff involved on the side of the house, can we safely, from a distance, with a straight stream, wearing an SCBA, put the fire out, do a due diligence all day long, okay? Let's talk about that though. So, there's no shock hazard to that. The trouble is, we got to look at this. How many times have you been on an electrical investigation, Captain, you've told your guys, go pack up, we're doing an electrical investigation. They'd look at you and go, you're smoking crack, right? They'd be like, what are you talking about? So, you have a battery with these cells in it. Now, when we put that battery out, we're not putting flames out. That's why the dry chem, that's why our old industry standard of taking something that's non-conductive and squirt it on there to put the flames out. These batteries are a thermal event and we've got to cool it down. It's not a fire per se. It's not like a couch on fire, the material's burning. This is a thermal event that's off-gassing and may have some spectacular little fire, but it's not a major fire load, okay? Us cooling it down is so important because for you, when you pull up on a fire, your engineers can say, I'll use tank water. It looks like this many BTUs, I'm going to use this many gallons per. Our engineers can almost call it to the gallon. It's crazy how accurate they are. So they won't even hook to a hydrant. With that, plan to think about either a water shuttle, hook into a hydrant, because you're going to use thousands of gallons of water. Not because you're not good at putting fire out. You're going to put the fire out. But long after that, you're going to be spraying that down to cool it down. That's what will stop it. Does that make sense? It's not an actual fire event. It's more of a cooling event. And you're going to have to keep spraying that sucker down till it's cooled down into a safe area. So you're going to be spraying water and you guys are going to have to get out the idea of, oh, you know, I only use this much water, like a dumpster fire. Look at my young kids, and they're kids on the job now, who use only a certain amount of water on a dumpster. And it's 3 in the morning. And I'm like, is that out? And they're like, yeah. I was like, you didn't use much water. And they're like, yeah, you know, I was really efficient with the water. I said, if I come back here in half an hour, because that's rekindle, it ain't going to be efficient or anything. You're going to be doing details for the next month. You understand? Drown the damn thing, right? Fill the dumpster up with water. I don't give a shit how much water you use. Fill it up so I don't come back. It's the same with this. And we're going to talk about, that's another thing. So we're talking a cooling event. We're not putting a fire out. We're cooling it down. What tool do you think we have that can show, because you're talking about a metal box on a wall. You can't see the ends. Tick, right? Tick's going to become really important. I was teaching in New York right after that captain lost his life. Well, he's a lieutenant. They promoted him to a lieutenant after he died. The guy that went into the basement on a fire, this is a couple of months ago. He was a lineman. They went in to a basement. They were shooting a movie, a brownstone, right down the street from where I was teaching.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, went in. Fire took off a little bit. They couldn't put it out. Smoke conditions changed. The lieutenant said, "Let's get out." So they stepped out, boom, 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 through. And if you've been to New York, those basements are horrible. They come out, they stand there, and they're like, "Where's the lineman? Guy on the line." They're like, "Don't know." Call him Mayday. He backed out, and as he's backing out, they kind of turned left. He turned right. Just got lost down there. He just couldn't find his way. Found him behind a bar on the floor, ran out there and died. One of the rescue 4, I think it was, found him because his pasta lights was going off, but it was too late. But if he had a tick, you know what I mean, he would have gone, shit, this is the wrong way, right? He would have turned around and gone, oh, there's the line. He was that close, that close. What I'm saying is the tick is going to be really important for us, for the officers to say, okay, is this cooled down? And I'll talk about why. So you're going to be spraying water and you're going to feel like, Jesus Christ, I've been spraying water on this thing forever. Water running out. What the hell is going on? No, it's 220 degrees. Keep spraying water because you turn your back and the thing could reignite. We've got to get that thermal event down, cooled down. So different way of thinking too. Once you put a couch out, you put a couch out. This is not the same. We're cooling something down to where it hits the tick. Now when those things are working, just for tick language, 120 degrees. It's cool. If you hit one of those, it's working away. It's a bad, it's outside or inside. It's working away. 120 is fine. But you start getting above 120, you get 160, 180, 200. You got to do something about it. You got to be aware of that. Okay? All right. That's my cue for talking too much. So, the vapors, SCBA. When this thing hits a thermal event, let's say you get called on an electrical problem tomorrow. These people have batteries in their home, and they're on the inside of the garage. Now, we wear, NFPA says wear a helmet, gloves, and goggles. Safety glasses when you go turn electricity off, if you're dealing with electricity. With this, somebody calls and says, hey, yeah, there was a spark in the house and all the lights went out. Okay? This stuff's in the garage. Guess what? If there's batteries in the garage, we don't know what's happening electricity-wise. We don't know if it's a grid or whether now it's the batteries inside the home. If they're hitting a thermal event, they're off-gassing. Are you going to see it? No. So what's the best thing to do? Is to enter the home with an SCBA on, because you can't rule it. Till you hit that tick on that battery, you don't know if it's the battery all right. And if the battery's hot, it could be off-gassing. Do you want to walk into a garage full of that stuff? You're going to take one nip of that, and it's going to hurt. So you've got to think about, I've got to get that garage door open and start venting on an electrical investigation. So you could walk into the house, open the door quickly, pop the garage door, get it open, get a fan going, hit it with a tick. No, it's not that. We've done a rule out. So we're starting to rule out. Even on the outside investigation of a house. Hit it with a tick. Get off the rig. How many times do we hit a tick on an electrical panel? You imagine walking up an electrical panel, hitting with it, then look at you and be like, what are you doing? We're going to start having to use that tick on a regular basis. Hit that battery. No, it's operating at 120. It's fine. If it spikes at 180, 200, you're like, okay, let's set a fan up. Let's start pushing the gases away and see what's going on. Yeah? So rule outs. We're going to start ruling out. SCBA. Fighting fire. I know the fire service has changed. You wear your SCBA in overhaul too, right? If you have a fire and you're in the garage and you're doing overhaul after a garage fire, you want an SCBA. If any of this equipment's involved. If you see this in your head, go, I'm putting an SCBA on because there's nasty shit. We're used to all the other nasty shit, but we just go, you know, we can't see it. It's not going to kill us. Wear your SCBA, okay? Okay, so we did a lot of testing. Again, copious amounts of water. There's not enough power for in there to travel up an 1 3/4 line at a safe distance, straight stream, cool it down. You may have some spectacular flames coming off it once in a while it's burning, but we're cooling it down, we're putting the fire out, we're doing our due diligence and putting the fire out. The biggest thing is reignition. What we've done is we've burnt one of those suckers, taken it off the wall and put it down and go, okay, it's cool, it's fine, it's out. Like, we're good, we walk away. They put a camera on it and they sit there and watch this thing. There's enough power in those cells to regenerate itself, and it will slowly start building up power if there's not enough damage. And you're not going to inspect it. We're not going to inspect this thing and go, okay, it's safe and look at. No, it's a metal box, right? We're not going to even touch it. The thing is, it can reignite. So you've done your due diligence. You put the fire out. You check for extension. You put all the equipment out, you put the fire out, you cool it down, you've cooled it with your tick and gone, okay, let's go home. You call the power company, they're going to come and shut off and pull the meter, right? That's what they do here, pull the meter. Your gas company comes and shuts off the gas and the water, and you tell your resident, hey, it's safe, we're leaving. It's 3 in the morning, I'm done. Okay? The trouble is, you get that call 12, 24, 36 hours later on a rekindle, because it's heated up. So at this point, this is why these fellas are in the room. This is why it's so important to start building a relationship, especially with the industry that are putting in these batteries. So you have a number that you can call and say, listen, we've had a residential fire involving this equipment. We need somebody to come out, physically disconnect that battery and take it away, because it's a liability to us. Now, this is a big issue in Vegas in the sense of the battalion chiefs are going, yeah, that's a great idea. Is it your responsibility if you call a fire and you leave, and your incident commander, your BC leaves and he puts the command back on you when you leave and say it's out? It's on you, right? Yeah, I got written up just not that long ago. Goddamn fire. And I shouldn't have listened to this hazmat captain. It was late at night and I didn't pull enough. I thought we did a good stop in an attic, and I was like, I don't want to wreck this person's house. You know, and we stopped at some point, and that guy on the shoulder was going, Rich, you pull more, you know, one of those, and I'm like, nah, we got it. Soaked it down with foam. No, we didn't. We got back there in the morning and put it out again. But the point was, with those, the battery, there's a chance for it to rekindle. So start building that relationship with the companies, start working on getting a number. I'm going to leave that up to you, I'm going to leave that up to your chiefs to start approaching the industry and saying, we need a number to call on a working fire. Because it's going to be up to you. Plus, I'm telling the captains, pass it on to the chief. If you get a fire with one of these, go to the chief and say, listen, in the class they said this is a possibility of rekindling. What are we going to do? Hand it over, hand the bag of shit over to the next dude, right? That's what, cover yourselves. It's really important to know that. Again, we'll hit it with a tick, we'll cool it down, but the rekindle is a problem, okay?
Do most of these agencies or companies put their contact number like on their equipment?
No,
and
like
this is, Sunrun installed it with a number on there.
it may have Sunrun on there, but it's not going to have detailed information. What I'm saying as a department, what you should do is start building this relationship with these guys and start talking about getting a number, because they have techs out in the field, but get a contact number so you can start working that out, because it's going to be something that's really important for you to make the contact.
Yeah, California just has so many companies that
Well,
are installing it, so.
And that's the thing, depending on what they're installing, there aren't that many batteries out there, right? So depending on what they're storing, you can get a number from the industry that they could send a tech out or whoever, but it's their equipment. At least they'll know about it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But start that process. That's what I've done in Vegas. I've started that process. I was down in Merced, California a couple of weeks ago, and the guys there actually were sending the department the information after asking the resident, sending the department which locations had solar. So you could bring it up in a CAD. Imagine going on a CAD and you got 2 lines. This has got solar and batteries. See what I mean? For you, for size up and everything else. That'd be good. Okay, so we got the panels on the roof, right? Producing that DC power. It's got to go somewhere. It goes to this bad boy. This is the inverter. And the idea of having is some muscle memory. At 3 in the morning, when you look down the side of the house, you're gonna go, oh, I recognize this stuff, right? Instead of going, what the hell's all this stuff? Because this is what you're gonna see. And depending on how many panels you have, this can only support so much electricity. You might have 2, 3, depending on the size of the house you're looking at. There might be 4 of these suckers on. All you've got to think is, this can handle so much power. If you have more power, you're gonna have another one. So the idea is, our 100-year-old technologies, we've come up, we send a rookie here, and he can't screw it up. You know, for years you go turn the power off, and you know he's gonna open this, shut the mains down. And hopefully, in Vegas we have all the breakers on the outside too. Hopefully before he switches all the breakers off, he notices which one's tripped. And then he calls you and says, utilities is secure. Well, yeah, we've secured the power going this way, AC. All this stuff here goes, hey, power's out. This kicks on, right? Like I said, okay, I'm gonna start feeding the house. Where does it feed the house? Remember that panel box I said that feeds the house? The wife sits down, there's the chief, the cat, says, hey, I want the fridge, fans, lights on. He's pissed because I'm picking on him, but that's all right. Okay, so you gotta find this panel. So now, this is feeding the home. So the guy's doing the aggressive attack, checking for extension. They're working on this. That's a liability, right? So we shut these down. Okay, we also want to look at the feed here. We want to shut the power coming in from the panels, right? To the batteries and to the mains. So we turn that off. If there's 3 of them, we turn all 3 off. That way, if there's conduit running up, because the conduit would run down from this into this from the panels, right? We've shut that flow that way. We've shut the flow into the panel. We've shut the flow out going this way. Take the disconnect, shut that down, shut this down. Now we've isolated 3 sources of power. Electricity now, from now on you should think of 3 sources of power if there's panels on the roof. The first source of power is our traditional AC. That can bite us in the ass if we squirt any water on it. That's not changed. Okay? The second source of power is the panels coming in. We have to realize and recognize and respect that DC power. We shut it off here, but it stops right here, but it still runs. So we gotta look and see where that conduit's going. We gotta go, you know, roof division, roof box, whatever you want to call them, vent group. Hey, I can see the conduit. Runs on the Bravo side of the house up to the panel. Okay? If you don't see it, come on. I don't know where that conduit goes. There's live conduits to the panel. Okay? So we've shut down this. This becomes isolated. Now we know this is 100 of those little cells doing their thing, right? What do? In a working fire, we pull up the side of the house, all this shit's burning, right? If we can get to it, we shut it down. With a weatherhead, if the whole house is going up, do we worry about it? No, the wires are burnt, right? We don't go, oh shit, I can't put this out, because no, the wires are burnt. We respect the weatherhead, there's power coming in, but we can start putting the house out. Same with this. If this whole thing's on fire on the side of the house, approach it, straight stream, SCBA, hit it. Where do you want to hit this thing? You don't want to hit the front of it, because you're just going to get wet. Okay? Safest thing to do is approach from the side, SCBA, straight stream, 100 gallons per minute plus, hit it off the back. If you look, come and have a look, there's a framework there. Best thing to do is just hit it from the back, start pulling it down, do your due diligence, start putting it out. Okay? That's what you're gonna see. So you can just straight stream it through there. Now, after you've put the fire out, check for extension, you might be still spraying this to cool it down. That's when the officers look with their tick and go, okay, it's down to 120 degrees. You stop flying the water, right? You leave it for a little while, you're doing your overhaul stuff, you keep checking it. You make that call to the dispatch, you make that call to command saying, hey, I've got a battery, there's a rekindle possibility. Use those words. This is a rekindle possibility. Okay, it's cool right now under my tick in your report. When I left the scene, I called dispatch, I told the chief, I told everybody on the planet, I told the dog next door, this was a rekindle liability. It was cool when I left, right? Okay, the residents knows that too, yeah? So we cool that down. Okay, like we were saying, you pull up 3 in the morning, you get a call on an electrical problem, something, all the lights went out in the house. They call us, they never call electrician, they call us. So we pull up, you get out, first thing you're gonna do is grab the tick. And you're gonna, if you see this thing, or you see panels on the roof, it doesn't matter, it's 3 in the morning. They could be running off that stored power, right? So that battery could be working hard, especially in, you gotta remember California, time of use. Okay, the power company knows, I'm gonna put on cap again, they know when you're gonna be using your most power. And guess what they do? They charge you out the wazoo during that time. What people are doing is putting these batteries in because guess what? They program that battery for when there's really expensive electricity, you're running off this. You see what I mean? And then when it goes cheap again, you charge it up with this. You charge the cheap electricity back in this, and it pays for itself. Plus the power company pays you extra because you're using that, because they can't keep up with the power demand. Does that make sense? So you're going to see this in use. It's important for us to understand those are going to be in use at different times of day because of that time of use. And they're exploding in the residential market. So when we pull up and you get a hit on this, you got to wear your SCBA. You got to put your SCBA, you get a hit on this, you put a fan in, you start ventilating, you start making those calls. You watch it, okay? Because you got a thermal event. Now, if there's flames coming out of it and it's going to catch the house on fire, you got to start squirting water. But can we do our due diligence and shut everything down and isolate it to 100 cells? Yeah. Is it safe to flow 120 gallons per minute SCBA safely from the site? Sure. We don't just stand there and go, sorry sir, your house is going to burn down, there's a friggin' battery. You know, no, we can actually put the fire out. Does that make sense? If it's on the inside. You may see this. Now these placards are becoming, I'm pushing Sunrun, this is best practice for the industry. Not everybody does this. I'm pushing the biggest, largest residential solar company saying, listen, we need information about where this shit is when we pull up. So when you pull up to the house and you see panels, go to this electrical box and you start seeing this stuff, or just this panel, nothing else, you know this is where? In the garage, right? And if there's an electrical problem, what are you doing? You're putting your pack on, okay? You're making entry in their home. You open that garage door, find the garage door, open up, pop that door first, okay? Get it vented. If you can, put your SCBA on, have somebody enter, open up the garage door. Then do your rule out with your tick. Hit that thing. Oh, it's only 120 degrees, you can take your pack. Do you see the difference? We have to start, we're not gonna see those gases. You might get a funny smell, but by then, it's too late, right? So we've got to understand that this is gonna be off gas, and we've got to understand the way we work it. It's like with the panels. We have that power coming into the panel. There's a new code coming out, it's called Rapid Sequence Shutdown. And we kind of went to the industry of the fire service and said, listen, there's a lot of liability in that conduit, a lot of voltage. And we've got guys cutting on the roof. The last thing we want is power traveling. We've isolated everything, but there's still power traveling on the side of the house. You know what truck companies are like, they want to break shit. And I'm like, it's kind of a liability to have that much voltage. So rapid sequence shutdown means, say you have the panels here on the roof. What it means is, if you turn this stuff off, it isolates the power right to that area and doesn't travel to that. So it isolates it within a couple of feet of the panels. Does that make sense? That's called rapid sequence shutdown. That's coming. But I can't tell you which system has it, which one doesn't. So we've got to still read the conduit, right? Because we don't know. but that's coming, which makes it safer. So if a truck company goes, okay, I'm not gonna break the panels up here, but I'm gonna cut over here, even if I hit some conduit, it's safe. So the panels on the roof, right, producing electricity, that rapid sequence shutdown is coming, but my big argument in Vegas with the truck companies was, well, Cat, it's 3 in the morning. Why can't we break the roof? This is where I want to cut the hole. That's it. You know, the captain's like, this is where I want to cut the hole. The panels are there. Why can't I just go up with a bucket and cut the hell out of them? I said, yeah, it's fine right now, 3 in the morning. They're not producing power. But guess what? You go back to the station, you document, you cut this beautiful hole for a vent hole. Have you caused damage to those panels? Yeah. Do we know? Have you checked with a meter? What happens when the sun comes up? They're looking at me like, you just documented that you just broke the shit out of all this, right? And the house catches on fire because there's a short, because you cut through all the wires and everything, and the sun hits the panels and it reignites. You own it. So if you break it, you own it. So what I'm teaching is, let's stay away from the panels during the day too. You don't want to be under there. We had, before I taught the class, we had guys doing an overhaul on a house with panels. Yeah, they sprayed water. You can spray water on those panels all day long. Straight stream, 1 3/4, you're not gonna have enough power coming down to bite us. But you get underneath, and now you're checking for extension. You can squirt under the roof, put it out. But we had guys during the middle of the day firing up a chainsaw, and they thought it was a great idea. Let's expose right underneath the panels. So they're cutting with a saw underneath the panels where all the wires are in the middle of the day. No. You can pull ceiling, right? Pull the ceiling away. You can do the due diligence. You can squat underneath, cool it down, take basically the fire away from the element and expose, but you don't want to start cutting anywhere close to those wires, right? The other thing you can do, what else can you do to render those panels safe during the day? What other tool do we have?
Salvage cover.
Salvage covers. Now we got rid of the old canvas salvage covers, but the tests we've done, you know the blue plastic ones? They bleed and you still get power, okay? Black visqueen or the old canvas. And they're better in the wind. So they might be making a comeback in Vegas, the old canvas. And it's fun to watch the rookie do the fold. What's the big fold? I've forgotten, it's been 25 years ago. Where you gotta stand there and be able to do this.
Oh, the throw.
Yeah.
Parachute.
Yeah, parachute throw for salvage and overhaul, right? Yeah, so canvas or the black visqueen, cover them. You've done your due diligence, right? You've made that safe. Anytime we leave a fire and it's damaged, okay, the panels are damaged, we've put the fire out, we've checked for extensions. Nothing up there is going to catch on fire during the night. But during the day, do you go in and check, oh, this circuit's clear, this circuit? No, that's not our job, right? If we cover the panels, that covers us. Does that make sense? Right? So 3 sources of power, you got to think now. 3 sources of power. The AC power, the DC power coming from the battery, that inverts to AC, and the power coming in. So that power comes in, if this goes down, charges the battery. So again, what we were talking about was why you're gonna see this, especially in California, is residential backup power. The grid's gonna be down. And how many times the grid go down in California? All the time. You're going to be able to back up your homes. People are using this, as I said, for time of use. And right now with the introduction of the electric car, the power companies are actually partnering with Sunrun, because guess what happens? These fire off when everybody gets home. There's such a massive load at a certain amount of time. Power companies don't have enough power. They're encouraging people to use this for powering their homes. It takes that spike out, and they actually can, so it actually helps the bigger picture, the bigger community. Does that make sense too? That is why we're gonna see this everywhere. Any questions before we go back in the classroom?
So you said these are gonna be how high off the ground?
They can be sitting on the ground or sitting like this. They're not gonna be out of range.
So you say it's going in the garage, so I'm just bringing this up.
Yep.
We have people that step on the gas when they mean to hit the brake.
Oh yeah, no,
They punch their car into it.
I'm gonna go through some scenarios.
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna go through scenarios. That's great. You're gonna laugh
got that
when you
one,
see
right?
that. Yeah, I got that one. Okay, any other questions just on this basic? See how important this is to have in the classroom?
The inverter's got something that the power does go out.
Yeah.
The power goes out.
It's got something to keep us from backfeeding the grid.
Okay, so as soon as this sucker sees grid power go down, it stops all the feed this way. And that's by, obviously the grids are going, we don't want any power. What it does is it just switches to this side.
Okay.
So it switches to there, and as I said,
Do those fail them? Like,
no,
It's
a almost a one-way valve.
Okay.
It's a bit like you're used to wells around this area. If you're on wells and mains, and people keep their well for landscaping, the water company makes you put a one-way valve in. It can't backfeed into their mains. It's the same with this. It basically won't backfeed.
it recognizes that drop in current. So
Yeah.
even if my neighbor though is firing up a generator and backfeeding,
Where you
the
see,
power's
people do all sorts of illegal shit,
Right.
But as soon as he kills a lineman, guess what? You're going to be visiting him he's going to get done for manslaughter.
okay.
As soon as he hurts a lineman, and that lineman falls off that pole, he's sitting in prison. That's how critical that is, right? This is safe. This is the way to do that, right? And you got to think about it. This backs up your home. I've been doing it for 13 years. If the shit hits the fan in Vegas, the phone call goes like this. Hey, hon, what's going on? Who knows when I'll be home, hon? Kids good? Yeah. Power good? Yeah. You good? Food good? Yeah. I'll call you whenever. Click, right? Vegas does 2 academies a year to keep up with the amount of hiring we have to do. I've got kids with kids at home, right? Who live in the city. What is the conversation going to look like when the grid goes down? And we're running. Your times are going to go off. It's done, right? Earthquake in this area, you're going to be busy for days. What my other part of this plan is, what is your protection? What have you thought? This wasn't available 2 years ago, 3 years ago to us. What I'm saying is every firefighter should have backup power for their home. Because the conversation goes like this. Hey, hon, you got power? Yeah? Not I'm at 5%, but I've got no power. I'm in the dark. Kids are crying. Are you going home? I tell my young kids, are you going home? Do you have a wife, family at home? Scenarios. Okay, so let's look at this one. Okay, you gotta pull up today. You got a working pipe. Got panels on the roof, right? Around 37 volts. In between that, you got strings of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you could have a potential of 300, 400 volts there, right? It's burning right now. What do we do? What do we do with that? Can we put it out with a water? Straight stream it? Is there enough power in this? We do a due diligence to shut everything down, the mains, shut down all the inverter and everything. Is there enough power in this right now with the sun being on to travel down 1 3/4 line, a deck gun, or a line flying 100 gallons per minute? No. Okay, if it's a transformer on fire, yes, there's enough power. We want to do that, right? With this, there's not enough power. So we can do our due diligence. Put it out. Go underneath, overhaul. Do we want to cut under those panels through the roof sheet? No. Okay? What we can do is we can cover this with a tarp afterwards, and we know now it's rendered safe, right? We can do that. We can pull ceiling underneath, we can expose, we can wet down, we can get this cooled down. Okay? That we can do. So, do we want to continue cutting into that? No. So cover, put out, expose, and basically we can do everything we've done before, we just don't want to mess with them themselves. Make sense? Any questions on that? Tactics, strategy, everything's good there? Okay, pull up. There's panels on the roof. You take a quick glance, and there's all that equipment you saw outside, inside that garage. You go, oh dear. Now we can get out on the mains and shut the mains off, right? On the outside. That's always going to be there, utility side. We've got that control. What do you want to do at that point?
Water.
Put
water on it.
Put water on it, right? No change. No change. Hit it hard from the yard, right? If the wires will burn up, they burn up. If we you can't get to the shutdown, it's going to be burnt up. What do you think the battery's going to be doing in this kind of chemical reaction? It's just going to be involved in another chemical reaction, right? Is there enough stored energy in that battery to travel, once again, down an 1 3/4 line? It'd be much bigger, 2.5, looking at that. I had my guys do a blitz, line, right? Sit on the pavement out front and have fun. Is there enough power in there to travel down that 1 3/4 line? No. Once we put it out, and all that burnt stuff is on the wall, and we've got everything cooled down, Cap, what are you going to do with your tick? You're going to look at that shell, if it's still intact, right, and go, is it cool? Everything else is cooled down. You physically put the fire out of the 2x4s or the lightweight construction and the drywall and all the other shit people pile in the garage, right? You put that out. You may be spending a little bit more time cooling down that battery, understand? Because it's a thermal event, right? And we want to get it down to a decent temperature. Once you get it down to a decent temperature, SCBA, you still got your SCBA on overhaul, you get it down to a decent temperature, you make those phone calls. Come on, dispatch, get these guys involved, okay?
Does that
Yeah.
shell melt away? The outer
It's a
piece?
metal shell, so just like anything else, like a refrigerator,
Like aluminum? I mean, it's aluminum or what is it?
I think it's aluminum, but you know, it's like any other metal. It's gonna scar up. It might, depending on how violent the fire chemical reaction is, right? It might break apart. At that point, those cells are going to be destroyed. It's going to be part of this chemical reaction. You know what I mean? There's going to be fire. It may have some little spectacular fire, but in an event like this, you're not going to tell what's on fire, right? You're just going to put it out. Yeah. So keep soaking it down, shortening it out. Does it make sense? Yeah. Next one. Okay. Flooding. You got a flood. Let me just go over these two scenarios for you guys. I'll go back. No time. Okay. All these guys are experts now. What would you do, Kat, on this? Tell me what your strategy and tactics are on this one.
That to determine whether it's return burning from the attic out or from the roof in,
Who knows?
and then check the attic, go in, full ceiling, check attic, and attack from the inside.
Okay. So this has gone through the roof. So it's already exposed through the roof. Would you do an outside attack and just knock it down, or would you go interior on a roof that's burnt through?
Interior.
Interior? Okay. All right. So are you safe? Is there enough energy, if you do your due diligence to shut everything else down, is there enough energy in those panels to travel down 1 3/4 and shock you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can put it out, we can do overhaul, like I was saying to these guys. Once we put the fire out, what happened in Vegas, we had a truck company, they put the fire out, it was underneath the panels, it was involved in the house fire itself, everything was put out. But what they did was they wanted to have a look underneath the panels because they didn't feel comfortable, so they went inside with a chainsaw during the day and were cutting now the roof sheet where all the wires are underneath the panels. That is no-no. Stay away from that. Yeah, you can squirt water on it, pull ceiling, dampen everything down, foam the hell out of it, but you don't want to physically be pulling under those wires. So you're saying tar pit, we'll make it basically what we're looking at with Vegas is we can use black visqueen or the canvas tarps, and you can cover that, and then during the day that's rendered safe. If you're a truck company, if you cut into that during the evening and the truck company said, well, it's safe during the night, there's no electricity. I said, well, you've damaged the panels now. You don't know what's going to short. When the sun comes up, this is going to activate. We don't know what electrical conditions are, right? You've just gone home to your station and wrote a report saying, I've just caused a shitstorm if it catches on fire, right? So cover it up, don't touch the panels, stay away from the panels. We can render them safe by covering it. And we can squirt water all day long, okay? Same on the garage fire. If you pull up a garage fire and you see all that equipment inside the garage, what are you going to do?
Put the fire out.
Put the fire out. Turn the mains off like we normally do on the outside, get to that, that's cool. If the wires burn through, the wires are burnt through. You can use an 1 3/4 SCBA and do our due diligence to put it out. Once the fire's out, we're doing overhaul, we're wearing our SCBA, you're hitting that thing with a tick to make sure, right? You just keep cooling it down to get away from the thermal event. Everything else might be out in the garage. You might be taking stuff out and laying it out, and somebody might be standing there. SCBA, safe distance, with an 1 3/4 inch, just spraying water on, cooling it down. Okay? Flooding conditions. You have flash floods all the time. You do your due diligence to shut what you can down. Okay? Is there enough energy in the battery or the panels that you could walk in a house with water and be shocked? No. Is there enough power in the grid? Yes. Completely different. What I'm trying to, grid hasn't changed for us. It's going to bite you in the ass every time. This is not the grid, and that's what you're going to come away with, right? We know
Are these
what-
systems sufficiently grounded that if there was an event like this, that it would go to ground?
They're much more sensitive, so yes. But what I'm saying is that chance in 1,000 where something happened, it's not grounded. The equipment for the solar is so much more sensitive than the grid that yes, it's a great question. Basically it shuts itself down. I'm just saying that one chance when it doesn't shut itself down, there's still not enough power produced in that battery or solar panel to energize the water at that point. You want to go in and shut everything down. The other part of this is to make your civilians safe in your area. You might have people running on batteries. The grid's gone down because of a flash flood, right? But people might be existing with their power. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that the power is good and it's spot, but if you get calls that they're having electrical problems and you're on dispatch, the whole grid's shut down. How the friggin' hell are they got a generator? No. You got to think, they've got a backup battery. So you might be going, do you see what I'm saying? You might be going on an electrical problem when the grid's completely down. You're sitting there going, what the hell are you going on? Right? So you'll then go in and go, okay, you've got a battery, and explain to them, and you start shutting, you find that panel that feeds the house and go, I'm shutting off your your emergency panel now because your battery is running. They'll look at you like, huh? So we are the front line. And that's what I explained to the industry. We are the front line. We're the front line for medical. We're the front line. In the 28 years I've been in the fight, we just keep getting moved to the front. We don't get moved to the back. We just get moved to the front. We're going to be in front of this. We're the ones dealing with it. Yeah? Okay, there you go. All that beautiful equipment was on the other end of that when it hit. What are we going to do? If the wires are torn out, the wires are torn out, right? If it's during the day, you see some wires dangling down from the roof, are you going to touch them? No. Right? If it's rapid sequence shutdown, hopefully those wires aren't, but we're not going to know that, right? So we respect that conduit that's broken, those dangling wires. Guys, don't touch that. Cool, we're good there. What if they damage the battery? We can run a tick on that battery, right? The guys are cutting. Have we ever won an SCBA cutting somebody out of a car? Get out, you got a tick. How many times do you have a tick on a car accident, right? I was with the heavy rescue for 10 years. We used to tick on a car, right? Guess what? If you punch into a battery, what have you done to that battery? Do we know there's a thermal event going on there? Do we know it's off-gassing? Run it with your tick. You're going to have your tick with you now. Look, no, battery's cool, guys. It's 120 degrees. Battery's 180, 200. SCBA, or what else could you do in this situation? You could set a fan up and blow the stuff away while the guys are cutting, right? Get that nasty shit away. Okay? But SCBA is another consideration. The other part of it, what if that battery starts sparking and smoking, catches on flames while you're trying to, somebody's trapped in the car? What can you do? What tools do we have? Water, right?
Water.
Safe distance, SCBA, start squirting it down, 1 3/4 inch, cool it down. Everyone in the area's got to be in an SCBA now. The guys cutting have to be in SCBA. Times are changing. How we look at this, yeah?
How long does it take those panels on the roof to stop producing power or power residual? Like if this is
Okay.
the case and it's the daytime, you go up, you put a tarp on them
Yeah,
because those dangling wires.
yeah.
We know not to touch them, but there's lots of other dumb people we
Yeah.
run with.
Okay, as soon as you cover a panel, it's like this.
It's done.
Done. There's no stored power. As soon as you unplug the panel, it does that.
So you put tarp in there, those dangling wires are no longer hot.
Yep. No. Black visqueen, cameras. The blue tops don't work. They bleed. Power through. Okay? So yeah, there's nothing stored in a panel. Sunlight hits it, produces electricity. Sun stops hitting it, doesn't produce electricity. Okay? Okay, here's a quiz. Number 1. Take a look quickly. Side of a house, 3 in the morning. Pretty much identified that, right? Let's keep going. See that conduit running up the top there? That's what you got to start reading conduit. Hey, roof ops, you know, this, I've got Bravo side. I got some conduit running on the Bravo side up to the panels. Be aware of that. I can see the conduit. Or I can't see the conduit. Be careful on the roof. Okay? That's going to be a decision. That's going to be a tactical decision you're going to make whether you cut. If you don't see that conduit. Go to horizontal. Go to positive pressure. So, let's go to the next one. There's a nice little bread and butter system you're going to see on the side of a house. Right there. Quickly identify everything. Yeah? Now, these systems can be anywhere in the house, on the side of the house, anywhere on the side of the house. The thing is, you've got to read that conduit from that main panel. But within 10 feet of that main panel, there's got to be a shut-off. So it's not like you're going to be firing conduit, like on a big square foot house, going around the back, following a long run of conduit. There's going to be shut-offs in between, okay? But you've got to be aware that this might be separate from the main panel. It's not going to be every time, even on the outside. The main panel's here, and then there's going to be cookie cutter placement of this. Does that make sense? Okay, there's one inside a house. Battery just looks different. About same size. Start shutting everything down. Hit it with your tick. Make sure it's cool. Ventilate. SCBA. Till you do your roll out.
Is there a functional difference between different kinds of, or something that we need to be aware of with different kinds of solar systems or solar panels? Like, for instance, they're having the ones that look at roof tiles now that you can't even see from the street.
Those things are coming out. I just did finish the video for Tesla on that.
Mm-hmm.
For the fire service. Fire engineering is going to kick that out.
Cool.
So you're going to get that.
Is there a big difference between those kind and these ones?
Completely different animal.
Great.
In that sense, yeah.
That's fantastic to know.
But it's super, super, super expensive right now. I'm still under non-disclosure. So I can't talk about it much, but I did all the fire testing for it.
Cool.
So, but right now you're not going to see that.
Right.
Not a lot. You're going to see this.
Gotcha.
They're selling thousands of these. So, there's another system inside. Going to identify everything. So my point of these slides is you're going to see different equipment, but the basics are the same. You know what I mean? It's like going to FD&Y or going to the FDIC and going to the expo room and you see 20 different fire trucks. But pretty much, you got water, you got a pump, and people to put in, right? They look completely different, but they got a water, a pump, and you can sit somewhere, right, with radios. It's the same with this stuff. Very, very similar in what it does, but it looks different shapes. But if you start getting that muscle memory of shapes, right, of what you're looking at, there aren't that many batteries on the market. The idea is to be able to say, at the end of class, go, oh yeah, that's a battery. You know what I mean? That's an inverter. And we should shut all this stuff down, yeah? So, let's do the takeaways. Using water, copious amounts of water. Start thinking, hook into a hydrant, start talking, especially in your area. I'm spoiled. I can spit and hit a hydrant every 50 feet in Vegas, it seems like. So, stay away from the panels. Don't vent there, don't cut there. Identify and read where that conduit goes. The rekindle. Make sure somebody knows when you leave. Get this relationship going with someone. I'm leaving that up to you guys. At the end of training, I'm going to make sure one of your chiefs is in contact with these guys and you start that relationship building. Okay? Don't break them. Tell the truck companies, you break it, you own it on the solar panels. And the last part of this, especially with California, I've done it in Vegas, I've done it in New York, I've done it starting all over the country here, but our question, are we prepared? Are we prepared for emergency? Well, you hear when I was talking about, basically, we're at a point where this technology wasn't around 2 years ago. And my goal is to get this technology out to the fire service. And Sunrun is sponsoring this education. They're paying me to instruct. But I don't make any money off this stuff. This is my goal, is to get every firefighter to consider investing in getting backup power for their homes. Because we're the ones who are stuck at work. And this stuff will make a difference to your families. It truly will. I've got it. I've had it for 13 years. I've got a lot of young firefighters in Vegas who are now backing up their homes because they're at work. You can't leave. The chief has already said, you leave, you ain't got a job. I don't know what your policy here is. If you have a massive earthquake, are the young kids able to just go home, or do they have to stay on duty? You can't abandon your post. That's the difference between having this, somewhere where your family's secure. So, in California, do you do medical? You do medical, right? We do medical. I mean, everybody does medical now. When I first started out on this gig, there was no medical. Now we do it. Now we have paramedic. I have a paramedic on my engine now. So, how does power affect us? And this is what I teach at like a national level, national security level. If we have a community, if you have your community, and people are investing in this equipment, does that little old lady who's on O2, I smelled the smoke coming in last night from the plane, does that little old lady become a liability if her power goes out? She's on 2 liters a minute, 24 hours a day. Does she become a liability? Yeah, she becomes one of our customers, right? If she's a Sunrun customer, right, and she's got backup power, does she stay out of our focus? If she's got her O2 plugged in and running 24/7, no difference, a fan, refrigeration and communications, does she become our customer or does she stay a Sunrun customer? You tell me. I know what would happen. She'll stay a Sunrun customer. Right? Imagine a grid outage. You got how many thousands of these, right? Insulin, diabetes, epidemic level. You can't refrigerate this. You can't refrigerate that. How many of those are going to be our customers? How many? You know, well, every one of them is going to dial 911. What if your fridge is running? What if you give yourself insulin? You become one of our customers, or you say a Sunrun customer? Nebulizer, breathing treatments. As I said, I got off that plane last night and I'm like, I'm eating smoke right now. Okay? You have respiratory problems, they're everywhere, right? Just a little bit of smoke in the air. Somebody with a nebulizer, they can give themselves a breathing treatment. Are they a Sunrun customer or our customer? They stay. That's what I'm saying. This has a massive impact. The great thing about this, I can teach you the tools to keep yourself safe. It's easy, it's a no-brainer. That education's easy. This part is helping us. This part is huge. The power companies don't want this to happen because they take their money away. And they really don't give a fuck whether we're running on these people. They don't. They don't. We just take the brunt of it. That's the difference. That's why, to me, it's really important to get this education out there. So, and this is what I'm doing in Puerto Rico. Now, talk about a place that didn't have power. What I did is I went to the industry, I went to their CEO, And I said, listen, you're gonna have to walk the walk and talk the talk. Basically, I contacted Puerto Rico Fire. All their stations were down. Imagine operating this station. Imagine trying to do 911 with no power. The generators were breaking on them, they had no power. I said, let's go there with this equipment and start putting it in fire stations, getting the 911s out. So that's what I did from 2 weeks after the hurricane, and that's what I've been doing. So this is how powerful this equipment is.
Puerto Rico's governor says it could take until December for almost everyone on the island to have electricity restored. But there is a solar company that is teaming up with nonprofits to help people get power back sooner. I want to bring in Lynn Jurich. She is CEO of Sunrun. Marco Krapels is the co-founder of empoweredbylight.org. Really a delight to see both of you, and thank you so much for your efforts. And Lynn, maybe I'll talk to you. What was it that inspired you to get involved right there to help the people that are in the most need right now?
Well, it was absolutely devastating to watch, and as an organization, we just rallied behind it. And were approached by our friend Marco here and his nonprofit Empowered by Light to say there are a couple things Puerto Ricans need. They need water and they need power. And we were united in the vision that solar could solve both of those problems. And so we went for it. We each have a personal friend in Las Vegas, Captain Bert of the firefighting team there. And he and said, this is a matter of life and death at these fire stations. We should go and bring solar power so that they can be community centers, so that they can respond to 911 calls. And we got together, we were on the ground, and we had it installed within a day and a half.
One of the challenges that we've been hearing is about coordination there on the ground, and maybe Marco, you could talk about that. You've already got 2 solar power systems set up, and they are helping the first responders out. Talk about some of the challenges about getting things coordinated, the communication lapses, the accessibility to some of the parts of the far-flung areas of the island.
Thank you. We couldn't have done this without the firefighters. When we came up with the idea to go and help 2 weeks ago when Captain Bert was in my home, and we said, we gotta go do something. My first phone call was to Lynn, and I said, can Sunrun pitch in? My second phone call was with Captain Bert to command the crews on the ground from the firefighters who made his 18-foot wheeler flatbed trucks available. And my third phone call was to Mark Ruffalo, our friend and sponsor and big supporter of Empowered by Light, who found someone that could fly a cargo plane for us. And literally a week later, we landed a cargo plane with 15,000 pounds of equipment. The firefighters backed up their 18-wheeler truck, offloaded the equipment on their flatbed, and 3 hours later we were installing on the first firefighter station. And this would have not been possible without the firefighters as our partners. We would have been stuck probably still on the runway in the cargo area shuffling papers.
Right, and it's going to take partners there on the ground. I know, Marco, you've been there seeing firsthand what the conditions are like. So, Lynn, you feel as though that renewables may be a solution? Because we keep hearing that the governor is saying, look, at this point, we've heard from reporting there, 80% of people still don't have power, and the governor is saying that they may not get the power restored until December. Are you feeling renewables may be the answer here?
Absolutely. Not only is it a short-term solution, but it's also a long-term solution to help us rebuild with a lot less expense. So just to share with you a little bit how it works, we put the solar system on the roof and it produces power all day long. At the same time, we charge the battery so that the fire station can then draw down at the battery at night. The sun comes back up the next day and the cycle resumes. So the fire station can run 24/7, whereas before it was running on a diesel generator that was very unreliable, only a couple hours a day. Now, once the grid gets back up and running, now you can use that battery for the benefit of the entire community. So you can communicate with the utility and you store the power in the battery, and then when neighbors need it, when the grid's congested, you can communicate and dispatch that power back to the grid. And now you find yourself in a situation where you don't have to build the same expensive grid that you previously did with old technology.
It's really incredible. We should point out of the 2 fire stations there in Puerto Rico, one of them is being used as an evacuation center. So you understand, it's not just the firefighters, although they, of course, are the first responders that are going to any sort of emergency. We know there's certainly a lot of them, given the ongoing struggle Puerto Rico is enduring. Our thanks to both Marco Craples and Lynn George. Thanks for the work you're doing, and thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on that side of it, I take this technology that I know works because I've lived off it for 13. Every day I wake up, my kids know, my wife, it's something I know works. And what we did was we managed to take that to Puerto Rico, and we're getting fire stations up. I've got basically 9 stations up and running. Because the grid keeps going down, guys. It's still not up in certain places. So from our aspect, the potential for this, for our use, is amazing. So that is why I'm building this relationship with someone. They're sponsoring this education. As I said, you buying a system, I don't see any of that money. I'm not here for that. I'm here to get you that education so you know what to do, but also to start thinking about building this relationship with Sunrun. They're the biggest residential. I know the CEO. They're good at what they do, just like we are. Let them start building that relationship. I'll have them come up and talk a little bit. Just introduce yourselves and basically use them. Start getting numbers from them. Start understanding where this stuff's going in. Come up front.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, Captain Burt. So, Sunrun, largest solar company in America, residential, and we really want to thank you guys for what you do. My manager over here, Tyler Rossi, we're here learning with you guys, and you guys got a really hard job. You guys got a really hard job. So, when you guys are going to an event, you guys probably have people already out of the house or coming out of the house, and you guys are going in the house. And I'm sure that one of the last things that they're worried about is whether they're going to have power or not. They're worried whether their house is going to burn down. So we're here offering the education for all the firefighters, but we also are offering the systems, the batteries and solar systems for you guys as VIPs at a reduced price. We're discounting the system to $1,000 and donating $400 to each of your departments as well. And Tyler, you have anything to say?
No, just we really appreciate it. Just the opportunity to get in front of you guys. And, I was talking to a couple of you guys. I'm from Santa Rosa. All my family lives there, so the first responders. I got a real soft spot for you guys, and we have about 25 people that lost their homes out there, and people that are still rebuilding. So just getting the opportunity to get in front of you guys, showing the products that are really hitting the market. You guys are going to be dealing with it every single day. Coming up here really quick by 2020, every new build is going to have solar on it. Whether it has a battery system or not, that's up to the homeowners, but the solar system is going to be on every new build in California by 2020. So it's just going to be something more prevalent for you guys. The education is just really cool to watch.
And I went to Lynn, their CEO, and said, Lynn, take care of my boys. Take care of the fire service. And they've stepped up. I mean, this is a great opportunity. As you said, there's hundreds of companies out there, mom and pop stores, right? This to me is top shelf. I'm putting my neck out here by inviting them. I want them to become part of our family. It's like the deferred comp ladies, the Aflac ladies turn up at my station every year, every two or three times a year, and they're talking to the rookies, and I just walk past the kitchen smiling because I'm like, they're getting protected. It's the same with this. I want this kind of relationship. So the young men, the old farts, they basically can get protected. That's what this is about. So use them. They're your resource now.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing you the softball. You run with it.
The card's in front of you guys. If you do end up with your information, it's not going in an auto dialer system. It's going directly to Ken or myself. So we're just going to get you guys, if you're interested in your homeowners, you want to know what it would take to get a system on your home, what it's going to do, what it's going to cost, all those kinds of things. That's all this is for. We're not trying to shove anything down your throats that's not going to be beneficial for everybody here. So if you are interested in just seeing what it's going to cost for the house and what the battery systems can do, that's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here for, yeah. Cool. And I promise you won't do any dialer system.
It's not doing
No,
that.
trust me. I mean, Lynn knows I'm out in front of this. And I'm not the type to beat around the bush. I'm inviting them into my family, 28-year family. You know what I mean? This is not. So use them.
Yep.
They're a great resource.
And through the end of the year, there's still a big rebate on the battery systems to bring them about half the cost of what they're going to be. There's a little bit of a shortage on batteries right now. So Lynn has, kind of committed to first responders that we are going to set aside a certain amount of batteries if you guys are interested to make sure that we get them out to people right away.
Let me get these sales back.